Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. The internet is one of the great technological marvels of the 20th century. And the internet was designed to be an information superhighway that was supposed to be able to allow people all over the world to become quickly educated on subjects, all based on the information placed on the World Wide Web. And as we have gone from the 20th century, which led to the foundation of the internet in the 1970s, to people interacting on the internet with early computers like the Commodore 64 and the Apple II, we've seen people go on the internet and basically build a network where they could basically talk to each other. And as that structure was laid out in the 80s, it turned into an information superhighway. And that information superhighway, as it was idealized, again, was supposed to be a place where people were supposed to gain lots of knowledge and become a bit more enlightened. Unfortunately, as we've gotten into the 21st century, instead of people showing how enlightened they are, what's happening to a lot of people on the information superhighway is that instead of them getting information that will enlighten them, what they're getting is a lot of misinformation, and that misinformation has been detrimental to overall society, especially the development of children. Now, when it comes to the information superhighway, it has basically gone from being a place filled with information in the 1990s and the early 2000s, which basically was a place where people could go do research instead of heading over to a library like they used to do before the internet, because before the internet was widely available to everyone, the only way you could research a subject was you had to travel to a library and had to travel to that library to basically go through the card catalog and look for the subject you were looking for. Then you had to go look through the call letters for the library books to find the books you were looking for and hope those books were available and not taken out. And then you could possibly start to do your research at the library. Unfortunately, as time has gone on, again, people, as we've evolved and gone from the library to the internet, instead of people being able to get information very quickly, the way many, like Al Gore, idealized, what has happened to the internet is that the information superhighway isn't enlightening people with more information that will allow them to learn more about a subject. No, what's happening to people these days, especially young children, is that they're basically learning misinformation, and they're taking that misinformation to be true. And as they take that misinformation to be true, what's happening to a lot of kids is that they basically are getting all of this misinformation and believing it to be a fact, and believing it to be a fact to the point where some are getting motivated to believe that they have a justification to participate in violence. Now, what I have been seeing as a part of the man and woman crisis in this country that I talk about in my books, The Man and the Woman Crisis, is a disturbing trend as related to the internet. And the disturbing trend that I'm seeing as related to the internet is that I'm seeing a lot of young children basically going on this information superhighway and getting a lot of misinformation and being motivated by that misinformation to go out here and participate in violent crimes like mass shootings. And that's shown to me because the age of these mass shooters is getting a lot younger and younger. And as it's been getting a lot younger and younger, I'm seeing where there's a direct correlation between the misinformation that children are getting on the internet and them participating in these violent crimes like mass shootings. Now, when it comes to the internet overall, the big problem I'm seeing with children is that children are now being able to access the internet unsupervised, and as they're able to access the internet unsupervised, what's happening is they're going out here on their devices like smartphones and tablets in the privacy of their rooms. And as they're on the internet on these tablets and phones in their rooms, they are going out here looking at subjects as related to information. But the sad part is, as they're on the internet, they're not able to discern the difference between actual information and misinformation. Because again, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, usually it was just one computer in the house. But as time has gone on, we've gone from kids having one computer in the house to all the kids having laptops in the mid 2000s to 2010s, to them having tablets of their own, to now them having information on a smartphone. And what's happened is, over time, as kids have been able to access this information, the web's information superhighway when they're young, is basically leading to them not having any sort of person there to give them any sort of guidance as related to discerning the difference between information and misinformation. And that's what's leading to a lot of kids heading down a road where they're motivated to participate in antisocial behaviors, like going to support hate groups, or going out here feeling like they're motivated to participate in criminal behavior like mass shootings. What's happening is that because these children are completely unsupervised, this is what's leading to these kids basically heading not on an information superhighway, but a misinformation superhighway, where they're basically being fed misinformation that does eventual damage to their lives. Now, the big problem I'm seeing with the whole internet, again, starts again with the home and the foundations of the kids, again, not having that parental supervision on the internet. That's a big problem I'm seeing. That's a big part of the misinformation that they're being able to access. And the other part is them basically being given these devices at an early age before they can learn how to discern the difference between information and misinformation. Now, as I see it, when it comes to kids really who are young should not be out here with any sort of tablet or smartphone at an early age, because the whole thing is that with these children, this basically hampers their development as related to their fine motor skills, as related to their critical thinking. And putting these devices in front of a child can basically lead to a child not being able to discern as related to the difference between, information and misinformation, because they're not ready for that level of subject. Now, back when I was a kid, back in the 1980s, I remember in the second grade being taught how to discern between information and misinformation by my teacher, Mr. Bufano, who talked about the subject of fact and opinion. And when it comes to the internet, really, children need to understand the difference between fact and opinion. That would help them understand the difference between information and misinformation, something that kids really needed to learn during the time we had them locked down during the COVID-19 lockdowns, because the COVID-19 lockdowns, basically, this is where kids were sitting in front of the internet all day. And as they were sitting in front of the internet all day, they were out here looking at different websites, not understanding that there is a difference between a fact and an opinion, and how to discern the difference between facts and opinions presented to you on a website. Now, when it comes to the internet all around, you have to understand that, yes, there's a lot of websites on the internet, but when it comes to them, you have to really take a lot of what you're seeing with a grain of salt, because there's a difference between fact and opinion. And oftentimes with the internet, some websites will blur the lines, so you have to be very careful about whatever you're reading, because sometimes you may not be reading information, but you could be reading misinformation. Now, when it comes to the whole concepts of fact and opinion, you have to understand there's a difference. Again, when it comes to a fact is something that can be proven to be true and can be substantiated by sources as being true, and that's what makes it a fact. And when it comes to an opinion is something that basically is the viewpoint of an individual. And this is how you can discern the difference between facts and opinion. Again, a fact is something that can be proven to be true and substantiated by actual credible sources. And opinion is something that a person basically is putting their viewpoint on. And if you're on the internet, you have to be able to discern the difference between the two so that you won't wind up getting caught up in misinformation, because misinformation basically can warp your whole perception of the world by not giving you a true picture or an objective picture of the information you're seeing. Now, when it comes to a fact, again, a fact is something that can be proven by multiple sources, where you're going to see the same information verified by multiple sources, and basically shows you that this actual event happened. And as you're seeing that this actual event happened, or this subject, this is what it is, this is the truth, but the whole thing is with an opinion. This is where we get into the blurry space that's basically confusing a lot of children and messing up their whole perception of reality. What's happening to a lot of kids is that they're going on the internet, they type in a subject in the search engine, and as they type in the subject in the search engine, a lot of websites come up. And as those websites come up, what happens to those kids is that they go out here and they can't tell the difference between the information and the misinformation. They can't tell the difference between a fact and an opinion. And sadly, since there's no parents to give them any sort of guidance, what they're doing is going online and taking the opinions of individuals as related to their websites as the truth and as a fact. But in actuality, what they're getting is a lot of misinformation that's basically completely distorted to meet the opinions of the individual regarding whatever subject that they're searching. Whatever the kids are searching online, they're looking at this misinformation, and that misinformation basically is taking them down rabbit holes as related to things such as conspiracy theories. And as they head down these rabbit holes as related to these conspiracy theories, what they're doing is taking in a lot of this misinformation that has them believing in not only these conspiracy theories, but the concepts that are presented by hate groups regarding racism, white supremacy, and even anti-Semitism. And again, as they take in this misinformation, they're taking it as the gospel truth, as they're sitting there with their tablets and their smartphones. And again, as they're holding these personal devices, they're taking in personal ideals from radical individuals such as white supremacists, such as terrorists, and such as, again, other conspiracy theorists, and taking on this misinformation as an actual fact. And this is what's leading to people not, again, becoming enlightened by the internet, but what's happening is that they are becoming radicalized. And as they become radicalized by this misinformation, they are sitting there thinking that this information, again, is going to lead to them becoming more actualized as related to social development. But what's happening is that they're being developed into antisocial individuals, all based on the misinformation that they're getting on the information superhighway. And again, this is because I believe a lot of kids are being put on the internet too young. Again, when it comes to young children, I believe that they definitely need to be supervised, and they need to be supervised especially when they're working with things like search engines like Google and many other search engines, because when it comes to these search engines these days, they don't really give you objective information. No, they don't give you objective information as related to sites. No, these sites basically have two things going on. They have AI presenting information to people in the search, and they also have an algorithm going out here feeding you different websites over and over again. And as you type in the subject, what the algorithm does is show you different websites that basically present the same talking points based on what you've read previously. And this is how people wind up heading down these rabbit holes as related to conspiracy theories, as related to hate groups, and as related to different subjects that are like anti-Semitism and anti-black racism. And this is what's leading to a lot of young children winding up becoming misinformed instead of becoming enlightened like people like Al Gore thought people would be by the information superhighway. No, what's happening is that kids are getting detoured to a misinformation superhighway. And as they are detoured into a misinformation superhighway, what they are doing is headed down a rabbit hole filled with conspiracy theories, filled with anti-black racism, filled with anti-Semitism, and filled with all sorts of crazy ideas about Illuminati and all sorts of stuff that basically this child cannot understand. And as a result, what's happening is that these children are winding up not growing up in a structure as related to learning about different subjects and having subjects scaffold for them. No, what they're happening is that they get this misinformation. They're growing up like a stalk filled with a lot of misinformation. And as their head is filled with all of this misinformation, what it's doing is it's leading to them being motivated to participate in antisocial behaviors and participate in a growing trend of antisocial violence. And it's all due to the fact that we don't really understand that we need to, again, supervise children as related to the internet, because the information superhighway, again, has a lot of information if you know how to discern the difference between fact and opinion. If you know how to discern the difference between a fact and an opinion, you can really get information from the internet. But if you're a child and you don't know the difference, what happens is that you're going to go on these different websites that are, again, written by individuals based on their opinions. And based on their opinions, you're going to believe their opinion is a fact. You're going to believe that their opinions are facts. And again, there's a lot of people, again, with a lot of stuff based on not any sort of fact, but on their feelings. And again, you can't let yourself get caught up in that. And again, this is why you need an adult there to teach you how to discern the difference between fact and opinion. Because what I've been seeing over the last 4 to 5 years since the pandemic that I find to be quite troubling is I've seen a lot of people just running with misinformation, whether it be on social media like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, just running with misinformation, and nobody going out here and doing actual research to verify the sources of that information. And I'm seeing this not only being done with individuals on social media, I'm also seeing it being done by many politicians on the left and the right. Again, they're not using the internet in an objective fashion. No, they're running with misinformation, like a report as related to a political candidate saying that there were people migrants eating dogs in a part of the Midwest. I mean, that story in and of itself was not substantiated, but people ran with that story to the point where it became a part of the 2024 presidential campaign. And I found that to be quite troubling because, again, here we have educated professionals who should know better, but instead of them looking to, again, discern the information, what they're doing is running on emotion, taking this misinformation as truth. And I believe we again have a serious problem, especially now with the development of children, because what I'm seeing with the development of children is that these children, again, were given this tool of the internet, but this tool is being weaponized. And with this tool being weaponized, it's leading kids down a road to a misinformation superhighway. Again, a rabbit hole filled with conspiracy theories, filled with all sorts of people who want to promote white supremacy by scapegoating minorities and promoting anti-Semitism. Again, people promoting hate on the internet. Again, with this misinformation. Now, this misinformation had been in a small corner of the internet ever since its inception, but lately, these days, people are just taking on more and more of this misinformation. And what's even more troubling to me is that as people take on this misinformation, what's happening is that the websites that present this misinformation are being made to look more and more professional, and that's really confusing a lot of kids. I mean, some of these sites like the Daily Stormers and the Breitbarts, again, look just like any other website, such as a site like New York Times or Daily News or any other news site. And again, if you're not an adult who can understand how to discern the difference between a credible source and a not credible source, you'll take the information from this incredulous source as one that is credible. And again, in the eyes of a child or a teenager, they're taking everything as the truth on the internet because it was put on the internet. No different than what kids used to do during my time growing up with television. We used to take a lot of what was presented on TV to be true, unless an adult came in and told us that it was not real. I mean, when it came to news shows and programming that was nonfiction, a lot of times we would take it as the truth, not understanding that, again, what we are getting is presented is an opinion on certain shows, especially shows speculating conspiracy theories and even some parts of the news. And that's the big problem we're having these days that no one wants to talk about. No one wants to talk about how America's information superhighway is becoming more and more a platform of misinformation, and how this misinformation is confusing children as related to the gossip and other stuff that, again, is speculative in nature. Again, people are taking stuff that's speculative in nature as a fact, and then creating their whole perception of the world around them. And what's further going to exacerbate things is what's happening with AI. Now, with AI, we've had people go out here and make what they call deep fakes, and these deep fakes are quite troubling because these deep fakes in and of themselves are a way to try to warp people's perception of reality, and warp people's perception of reality to make them believe that fiction is a fact. And this is why I believe that, again, we really need some legislation to deal with AI before the wrong person goes out here and stages an international incident or some sort of event that people take as the truth. And again, it's really, again, a part of what's happening with this misinformation superhighway. Again, a misinformation superhighway that's destroying the development of children. Again, children need to understand that we live in a real world and that everything you see online isn't real. I talk about this in depth in my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. In Stop Simping in Cyberspace, I tell people, okay, that everything in this world that you see online isn't real. And again, you need to, again, take everything you see online with a grain of salt. And unless you can verify information as information, you need to take it as a grain of salt, as somebody's opinion. And again, someone's opinion is not a fact. And again, this is something children don't understand. And again, this is why I believe children don't need devices like smartphones and tablets at an early age. No, they need pencil and paper so that they can learn how to be able to make information as related to the real world, and be able to discern things like the basics, like the alphabet, and learn fine motor skills and coordination. I mean, when it comes to little kids, they don't need to be on the internet, and I would even say preteens don't need to be on here, because they, again, take a lot of misinformation as information. And again, you need to learn how to discern things and be able to discern the difference between the two, and do the research and as related to things. And again, I know a lot of parents want to pacify their kids by giving them a smartphone at an early age because they get caught up in the screen and get the dopamine rush that keeps them quiet. But as they're quiet, that's when you really need to worry, because quiet children are in a dangerous predicament. And quiet children are in a dangerous predicament because they're, again, as they're on the internet with these apps, they're not, again, looking at information. They're looking at misinformation. And again, them going down that rabbit hole basically could put them on a road where they could possibly be on the road to being in a graveyard. Again, all because they took in misinformation that I've been seeing, again, a lot of these younger mass shooters getting from the internet. And again, I look at this internet, again, it was one of the great technological inventions of the 1970s and basically became an essential part of life here in the 21st century. But as it's become an essential part of life in the 21st century, we adults really need to reevaluate how we are raising kids with the internet. We really do need to really rethink how we're raising kids with the internet, because what's happening now is we're getting kids who are not getting a healthy picture of reality, because they basically are in a virtual world. And again, as they're in the virtual world, they're not learning how to function as real people, because they're not getting good information that will allow them to be able to navigate life as a real person. And basically, as they get this misinformation, what's happening is that they're believing that the realities of these conspiracy theorists and people who have AI to be true, when in actuality, everything that they're learning from this misinformation is a lie that's putting them on a road to dysfunction, which has them, again, going in a dysfunctional direction, that if a large mass of Americans wind up in it, and people all over the world wind up in it, is not going to take the world into a technologically advanced society, but possibly take us into a dark dystopia where there's nothing but chaos all around us. Now, if you want to learn more about the predators on the internet, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Stop Simping in Cyberspace at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about the internet and technology, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.